Thank you for joining us. We'll get started in about 1 minute. Welcome everyone to New Trends in Aircraft Interiors. Today's webinar is an interesting look at some of the trends that are driving aircraft interior design. Many owners have elected to take advantage of downtime during the pandemic to upgrade their aircraft, and there are a lot of options to consider when doing so. We're going to start with trends affecting aircraft cabin design, such as heated stone flooring, hydrographics treatments, and new options for side ledge switches. But weight always has to be considered, and we'll address that issue as well. Then we'll move into LED and mood lighting options, which are becoming more prevalent and give even older aircraft a modern look. Of course, there are regulatory constraints, as with any aircraft product, and we'll look at how those affect the modification picture when it comes to new lighting. Joining us today are Veta Traxler, paint and interior designer at Star Aviation, and Shervin Rezaie, general manager, Aircraft Lighting International. We welcome your questions, and all you have to do is just type your questions in the webinar question field, and we'll address them at the end of the webinar. We'd like to thank Aircraft Lighting International and Star Aviation for sponsoring today's webinar. So we're going to get started with a poll question to see what webinar participants think about business aircraft cabin design. And the question is, what interior design trends most interest you? And looks like a lot of interest in entertainment systems, cabin controls, LED lighting's coming up strong, and all of the above. So the high levels of comfort, very useful for everybody. And we'll have the results in just a few more seconds. And it looks like the strongest result, entertainment systems and cabin controls, but coming in second, all of the above. So LED lighting, high levels of comfort, entertainment systems, all very important to our audience. Thank you very much, and now I'll hand it over to Veta Traxler.
Thank you. As Matt mentioned, I am Veta Traxler, and I am one of 3 paint and interior designers at Star Aviation. I have been with Star for 5 years now, but have been in the industry since 2012. The vast majority of clients are conservative in their design outlook. They are looking to create something long-lasting, tasteful, elegant, but will still turn heads. With that said, the market has transitioned away from the earth tones and has stayed consistently in the gray and darker saddle orangey colors that are currently popular in automotive interiors. These colors are often paired with darker wood tones. Popular carpets are classic layered textures combining strié warm and cool yarns with 1 or 2 ends of silk accents. The minimal amount of silk adds a lot of depth without compromising durability of the predominantly wool carpet. Next slide. Overall seat designs have transitioned from the bulky traditional style to more modern, sleeker forms. However, the biggest trends in seat design have been the introduction of quilted inserts. The luxury automotive manufacturers like Bentley and Ferrari in part have influenced this. The major OEMs have incorporated them into their newer models, which then trickles down to the refurbishment side. The quilted inserts are completely customizable to fit each client's individual needs and aircraft. Simple patterns like single or double top stitch diamonds, seen in the top right image, can be completed in-house. The majority of the quilted panels and all patterns with perforation, as seen in the middle image, are outsourced due to the complexity of the design. All of the top aviation leather vendors should be able to provide this service with a 3 to 4 week lead time. Though very popular, be prepared to spend an additional 25 to 30% on your overall seat costs. The next adaptation to quilted inserts is to create the design through embroidery, as seen on the bottom 3 images. Only time will tell if it becomes a true trend. Lower sidewalls and bulkheads are starting to implement quilted panels as well, but I will touch on that more later. Next slide. Entry, galley, and lab areas have always been a challenging area for carpet due to the amount of spills and foot traffic. It has been a consistent battle up until recently, now that there are higher-end, aesthetically pleasing alternative flooring options. The most cost-effective option is rolled vinyl. Rolled vinyl options used to be very industrial looking. Longcoin comes to mind, but there are many different pattern options today. These rolled vinyls are designed with beauty and function in mind. They are engineered to be lightweight yet maximize durability with easy maintenance. Most of the rolled vinyls come with a fiber backing to help with sound dampening and comfort. Next slide. The next option for alternate flooring is luxury vinyl tile, or LVT. LVT allows for the most versatility in style, color, and patterning. Wood textures are the most popular pattern, and the edges can be beveled to appear more like real wood. Different designs can be created with the tiles, such as planking, seen in the left image, herringbone, seen in the right image, chevron, parquet, and arrow, to name a few. However, keep in mind when creating a pattern that these tiles have to be glued down to a removable substrate floor. Oftentimes, in larger aircraft, the floor needs to be hinged for removal and will create a seam. Though hard to tell, it can be seen on the right image. These sleek-looking flooring will increase your cost by roughly 50%. Next slide. Natural beauty and durability of real stone is the ultimate high-end alternative flooring option. It is a long-lasting and elegant option for cabin areas with the highest traffic. Unlike carpet, there is no deep cleaning or fire retardant treatment necessary. It even has the same acoustic behavior equivalent to conventional flooring solutions. Some vendors have optional integrated heating that is adjustable to any preset temperature between 74 and 94 degrees Fahrenheit. Unfortunately, at this time, it is only approved by EASA. All stone surfaces can be polished, brushed, and even customized with inlays and laser engravings. This opens up virtually endless design possibilities. Stone floors will triple your flooring cost and has a lead time of 10 to 12 weeks. Next slide. Electronics play a highly important role in aviation and our daily lives. Due to the rapid change in the consumer electronic market, avionics are extremely susceptible to obsolescence. This is particularly true in the later model aircraft. Even though there are some plug-and-play options for older switch panels, these new CMS systems lead to customizing the drink ledges. Standard outlets are in a sense a thing of the past and being replaced with USB outlets. The challenge is where to install them so that they are easily accessible but yet do not get in the way. The top image shows a before and after of how we integrated sleek, innovative angles into the side ledge so that the cords are not sticking up or the plug isn't on the dado panel where your knees are constantly knocking them. The bottom before and after image shows that we could have fit the new avionics switch panel in the same location. However, the owner was enamored by the unique side ledges that were in his Dornier. That being said, he wanted to replicate those side ledges in his Falcon. The new tiered side ledge not only enhanced the aesthetic, but displayed the avionics at a nice angle for ease of use and visibility. Next slide. Not all side ledge modifications are driven by avionics, but overall aesthetic. Take a look at the before and after image of a recent 7X that was completed. The ledge was modified to mimic a sleeker, more modern BMW design. A backsplash was added, as well as a gradual curving on the edges. Next slide. Due to cooler tones and more leathers being applied throughout the aircraft, clients are always looking for ways to bring in more warmth into the cabin. The most popular solution is creating new bulkhead solutions. That or eliminating the bulkheads completely and replacing them with curtains, as seen on the previous slide. Fabric overlays are a great solution to bring in warmer textures that also help with sound dampening. Take a look at the top image where we incorporated a quilted fabric panel. This customer owned a high-end hotel casino in Las Vegas, so he wanted the plane to mimic the suites and lounges that he had throughout his hotel. The idea of the quilting not only created a warm and comfortable feel, but it also added a touch of luxury and detail to an area that is often forgotten. Hydrographics have become popular in many industries in recent years, including aviation. These finishes are created using a unique water transfer printing process that can be used on almost any material, geometry, and substrate. It is an expressive alternative to the traditional finishing of hard surfaces. Hydrographics have the ability to match existing wood, stone, leather, and you can create custom patterns like a moon wall seen in the middle image. We have not completed an aircraft yet with this technique, but we do have a few currently in work. It was a great weight-saving and flame-resistant solution for our customers. Next slide. A major aircraft interior refurbishment is a significant event in the life of your airplane. It will take skilled facilities a few months to complete, depending on the work scope. Proper planning is critical. When given a downtime, it is assumed all materials and designs are finalized. Vendor lead times can factor into your final delivery date if not properly accounted for in the planning process. You do not want to compromise on interior finishes because you have to select in-stock, readily available materials. Projects can push a week to months depending on the design element. It is essential you work with your facility well before your input date to make sure that your aircraft is delivered on time and squawk-free. Next slide. Regardless of trends, we as designers are designing to mirror your personal style. We are a 100% custom business that will represent your own individuality. So do not feel obligated to implement any of the trends discussed today. With that said, I will hand it back over to Matt for a poll on interior lighting.
Thank you, Vita. Before the poll, I just had one question I was curious about. You mentioned the cost of, I think the hard flooring was about 50% more. Is that like 50% more than just a typical carpeting, or what are you comparing it to?
Correct. That would be in regards to that carpeting, and mostly it comes because of the substrate floor that has to be created. So we have to build a honeycomb substrate, and the material gets applied to that. So it's just a little bit more time consuming and has more man hours.
Okay. And so with the substrate and the flooring itself, are you still able to keep the thickness to reasonable thickness, so it's not like taking up too much space and interfering with the cabinets and everything?
Correct. All of that is done in conjunction with the carpet. So it all will end up being the same height in your aircraft, and then the seam is finished off with a really nice metal threshold plate. So it's a nice, easy transition throughout the whole cabin.
Okay, good. Thank you. Well, thank you very much, Vita. That was really interesting. And let's do another poll to see what our attendees think about lighting design. And the question is lighting an important component of cabin design and passenger experience? We'll give about a minute for people to answer these questions. And so far, the majority are trending towards LED lighting helping passengers, and strong second is reliability and low life cycle cost. And looks like pretty universal agreement that LEDs are better than fluorescents so far. And we'll give it a few more seconds to get everybody's answers. And everybody agrees well-designed LED lighting helps passengers, and reliability and low life cycle cost are very important considerations. So far, it looks like very few people haven't experienced LED lighting, so it looks like LEDs are definitely a strong trend. Okay, now I'd like to welcome Shervin and let Shervin take it away.
Thanks, Matt. As Matt said, my name is Shervin Rezaie, and I've been with Aircraft Lighting International as the general manager for the last 6 years, actually a little more than 6 years. And I've enjoyed every minute of working in this tight-knit community of business aviation, and would like to thank Westar and Vita for joining us in this presentation. That was a fantastic snapshot of the trends today in the interior cabin. And I also want to take a moment to thank the AIN team for putting together this wonderful webinar. Matt, Nancy, Zach, and Lisa, you guys do a lot of work behind the scenes, and it's always greatly appreciated. So thank you very much for all of that. I'd like to start by just giving you a quick roadmap of what I'm going to dive into today. There's going to be 4 sort of broad trends that we're going to talk about. The increased use of our plug-and-play LED systems that you see throughout the industry. Those are just quick drop-and-play retrofit LEDs, not talking about refurbs there. And then we'll move on to the trends in the color temperatures that people are going for, followed by the trend in requesting custom curved LED tube lamps. And last, we'll talk about mood LED systems, that being cool to warm lights and RGBW lighting systems. So we'll go to the next slide, and we'll just cover really quickly the basics of why people are going to LEDs. Next slide, please. And here, as we know, most people have experienced LEDs, and it's pretty simple. It's brighter, better light. You're going to have a more durable lighting here. That's not going to be made out of glass. Most of them are in polycarbonate tubes or metal structures, and they're going to take less power, and less power means less heat. And if you take a look at the photo over there, what you'll see is ALI's LED readers. They're plug and play PMA approved. And if anybody's ever been on an aircraft, they know that those the incandescent bulbs can get very hot to the touch. In fact, they have those nice little plastic covers on there. When you go LED, you're talking about 1/10 of the current. That means less heat. That means you can actually remove those plastic protectors and actually have a really nice sophisticated assembly there on the aircraft. Additionally, LEDs provide for a lot of options. Again, mood, RGBW systems, warm to cool, and curved lights that we'll talk about later on. This just gives you a lot more options. And as Vita said, with any trend, it doesn't mean anything because you are the VVIP passenger, owner, operator, and whatever you like, that's what matters. And with LEDs, we have those options. We'll go to the next slide. And this is a good example of a before and after where you have a full refurb. This is your typical upgrade of the entire cabin. You're getting rid of fluorescent tubes. You're going to LED. Here in this G450, we got rid of the ballast and went with a self-ballasted LED system. The reason for that is you can get rid of those little power supplies, have everything operate in the light, and that means less to maintain in the future. So you have longer life, beautiful, bright light, really pops, and you have less things that can go wrong on the aircraft. But now, this has been, existing forever. Everybody's been doing these LED upgrades. But what we're seeing more now is an increase in doing quick, just LED upgrades. And in the next slide, you'll find that there's a 400A here. And on the left side, you have the fluorescent tubes. One's actually out. On the right side, you see all that's upgraded on this cabin is the LEDs. The wash light is now in a warm LED light, and the impact is evident from the pictures. They didn't touch anything. You've got a brighter, cleaner cabin. And this is what you're seeing happening everywhere. People are using the quick and easy drop-in retrofit LED system. It's as simple as changing the fluorescent tube. You just pop in the LED lamp. And what this is doing, why this is happening, is that there's this common misconception that LEDs are expensive, but in fact, they aren't. Just anecdotally, this last Monday, we had a customer who had a fluorescent lamp go out, and it's a few $100 lamp, but they ended up spending thousands of dollars to get this lamp over to the aircraft so that they could get it back in the air. And as anyone knows, an AOG aircraft can cost tens of thousands of dollars a day being grounded. So with that kind of cost, you can update your lamps, get them to LEDs, and never have to worry about lighting again, grounding you. And you have DOMs and charter operators that are starting to see this, that it just doesn't make sense to spend so much staying to fluorescence. Get those plug and play LEDs in there, enjoy the longer lifespan. And then when you do a refurb, you can get into the more fun stuff that we're going to touch on later. So moving forward, and this is going to be the next slide, we're going to show the cool white versus warm white. And this is the trend that Veta touched on. And with the move away from earth tones to more dark gray, dark finishes, blacks, you see that more folks these days are going to cool white. On the left side, you have a Hawker 800 XP with the warm white. On the right side, you have it with the cool white. Now, with that said, even though more and more people are going cool, the warm light, it's a classic look. It'll always be around. And the biggest takeaway is remember, there's no truth in taste. Whatever you like, you'll still always have the option to go warm or cool. The key takeaway is work with your interior designers to know how the lighting is going to play with your soft goods. You want it to complement all that work you're doing. And if we go to the next slide, it's just another example of cool versus warm white. Both Challenger 604s here, and they both look fantastic, but the interiors are very different. You have dark ledges, dark finishes on the left, whereas on the right, you have the browns and golds. Both look great, but again, you see a lot more people going cool white. So that brings us to our next trend in the next slide. We're finding that there's a lot more requests for custom curved LED tubes. And this occurs in two situations. The first is right in front of you here. This is the classic Hawker curved accent light. And in the OEM version, it's made up of 5 fluorescent tubes. And what we are getting requests to do is 1 curved LED tube. And why this is being requested is it gets rid of those hot spots that those 5 small little fluorescent lamps sort of arranged. You're going to get little dark spots, little hot spots. Now with 1 lamp, you've got a nice arch like you see here. And 1 LED lamp is always going to be cheaper than 5 fluorescents. So it makes good money sense too. And if you take a look to the light on the right-hand side, you see how many diodes we use here at Aircraft Lighting, and in LEDs in general, you see a lot more diodes. And with these curves, that brings us to the next area where you see custom curved LEDs, and that's with accents. So if we could go to the next slide, please. Here you'll see the S curve in the galley at the toe kick, and you have a nice little arch in the lab. This is on a 604. And what we have here is that people want to have that accent lighting match and mimic what they have in their upwash, downwash, in their mirrors, and for their crystals. So what we do now is we get rid of those tape lights or those old peanut bulbs that were little incandescent bulbs in a tube that had point of light effect, big gaps with the actual lights. So it looked like little speckles, almost like a Christmas tree, giving you that accent. Now you have nice, clean, uniform LED lighting. And with the use of our same LED tubes, now just heat molded and curved to fit in there, you're eliminating the need to glue any sort of lighting in there. There's no soldering. They just use normal connectors and holders. So for the whole aircraft, you have this nice uniform lighting experience. And, we think that trend's going to keep going on, because if you can have the LEDs encased in a polycarbonate tube, you're maintaining that durability and uniformity. Now we're going to go to our next slide, and this is a callback to the warm to cool color temperatures that folks constantly have to pick. And, it's kind of the weirdest, why do I have to pick between warm and cool when I'm doing business aviation? Again, it's VVIP experience. So customers have demanded, and we have created an LED system here that has warm to cool color temperature in one lamp. And so in this picture, this is actually the same mock-up, and it's the same lighting system, but on the left, it was set to 2700 Kelvin, and on the right, it was set to 6500 Kelvin. And you have everywhere in between that range. So you can get it closer to daylight, going to the blue or the warmer orange tones that you may like. The cool is great for working when you're trying to get things done or reading. And then you can set it to warm to have more ambiance. We find that this is, a very refined, sophisticated lighting system that people want to be able to have that choice. They have those choices at home. They want to see them on their aircrafts. And it really sets the mood. But in addition to setting the mood, you can have a little fun with the mood. And that'll get us to our next slide. And this is the Mood RGBW lighting system. Here you see it installed in a 400A. And with this, you can have any color under the sun in your cabin. And I would say, 4 or 5 years ago, a lot of people looked at this as a trendy gimmick thing, but you're getting way more requests for this. And the number one reason for this, and it's stuff that Veta touched on, is the RGB LED lights are everywhere now. You see them in your homes, you see them in your cars, on yachts, at the movie theaters. If you go to any promenade, there's almost guaranteed to be an RGB light show. So the ubiquitousness of RGBWs has made it so it's not so much of a gimmick anymore. It's something that you can have a lot of fun with, and moreover, you can have a really nice ambiance set. If we go to the next slide, we see the same RGBW system installed in an Embraer. And what we hear a lot of people asking for and talking about is fatigue, stress. How does lighting affect that? And how are we going to use the lighting systems to reduce fatigue or stress? Studies show that almost 85% of folks flying feel some sort of stress just because they're flying, whether it's consciously or subconsciously. And other studies show that the use of blue light can bring people to a calm state 3 times faster than a cool white light. So with these LED lights, you can actually create an atmosphere that's soothing, that's relaxing and comforting, and potentially even reducing the effects of jet lag. And we have worked with companies that use algorithms that adjust the lighting based on your departure city to your arrival city and the time difference to set a light show that will then make you feel less fatigue when you land. So you've got a lot of fun things happening in the world here in LEDs. There's 2 big summary points here. LEDs have hit the tipping point. We're honestly well past it. Whether you're just doing quick upgrades or going for these exciting refurbs, LEDs are the way to go. Fluorescents, nobody's messing with them if they don't have to. And then the last summary point is that consumers want options. That's what we hear. People want to have the choice. And while there's many, many trends, there's always a unique flavor somewhere over here or over there. And with LED lighting, you can achieve those with your interior. And with that, I'll turn it back over to Matt. Thank you very much.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Shervin. That was really interesting, and we're getting a lot of really good questions. I wanted to start, though, by asking Veta, uh, what are you seeing in the industry right now? Are you getting a lot of requests for quotes for interior work right now? And are people taking advantage of this downtime to get these big jobs done?
We are. I think right now is kind of the time frame that everybody's kind of reevaluating their aircraft. And a lot of people are now starting to look at, okay, is this something I want to do overall or a partial? Obviously, I'm going to bring it back to my slide about pre-planning. So as much as people want to input those things now, it's really good to kind of think about lead times and stuff like that, so that you can better prepare for that upcoming event. So it may be best to tie it in with a maintenance event that you have coming up. But like I said, we can definitely roll with the punches and try to get what everybody is needing.
Thank you, Vita. Appreciate that. And Shervin, in general, are you just seeing fairly strong growth in the LED market right now? Not just because of increased business during the downtime, but just in general because LEDs are really coming into fore now.
Yeah, and I think what you said there at the end is the big takeaway. Folks are now recognizing how much it costs to maintain these fluorescent systems. They're not that great. The impact of an LED is stark. And when you look at how much money is spent just in shipping, maintenance, people order 2 fluorescent tubes at a time to replace one because one might get broken during shipping. And when you add up all these sort of collateral costs to replacing lighting, LEDs just start making more and more sense. And DOMs are being able to make that business case more clearer. And we, like I said, we're past the tipping point. Everyone's moving to LED lights, whether it's piecemeal, one light at a time, or doing complete, upgrades to the entire cabin.
Great. Thank you very much, Shervin. So, Vita, I've got a question from the audience for you. And the question is, considering that customers sometimes prefer ease of use and accessibility, do they request more control from one passenger control unit, or are they looking for more options with controls in multiple locations?
In regards to kind of switch panels and stuff, we are having more access to switch panels on each seat, but typically the most functionality is at the VIP seat or a secondary VIP seat. So it really just depends on the customer's expectations and what works best for them and their flying use.
And obviously, mobile device control is a big part of that as well as an option, right?
Correct. So a lot of people are using their iPads, iPhones, and all that. So a lot of vendors now have apps where they can control lighting, for example, via an app instead of actual control panel.
Great. Thank you, Vita. So Shervin, question is time for installation of LEDs, and maybe you could sort of break that down into different sizes of aircraft, like maybe a light, medium, large cabin. And I know there's a lot of different factors involved.
Sure, yeah. And I just wanted to add on to that last point that, that trend for mobile apps, aircraft lighting also has developed mobile apps to control our mood lighting and warm to cool lighting systems because that is what the customers are requesting. To answer your question, depending on the aircraft size and whether or not you're going with a drop-in LED replacement system or a full mood upgrade or self-balancing system, it all varies. When you're doing just one fluorescent lamp for one drop-in LED, it's a few hours. It's the time it takes to change a fluorescent tube. And if you're doing that on a larger aircraft, it takes more time. If you're going self-ballasted, it all depends on where the ballasts are located on the aircraft. Sometimes a smaller aircraft, it's actually harder to reach those ballasts than on a larger aircraft. So size isn't really always the dictating factor. It's how the aircraft's organized, what is the accessibility to get to the power sources. And then when you do a mood or the RGBW or warm to cool lighting system, it's all about planning because you're basically integrating with whatever cabin management system you have and then laying down wires to get that lighting up. So the key is planning. If you have planned ahead and did the work up front, then it should be a fairly quick install because you're going to be doing a lot of stuff anyway. So accessibility is easy, a few weeks. And so it just all varies. But, this is stuff that we love working with. So you can always give us a call and we'll get you a more detailed answer. But that's a broad swatch that you gave me there. So sorry if it's not precise enough.
So another question is asking about plug and play LED options and whether there's any risks in mixing old and new technology, like leaving some of the fluorescents and ballasts in there and then replacing some with the LED lights.
Sure. Yeah, and there's no risks. LEDs are always going to be safer, right? You don't have the glass. You're not dealing with filaments in the bulbs. So best practice would be upgrade the entire system to a self-ballasted LED system. You get rid of ballast, you get rid of glass, you get rid of filaments. But going one at a time, you certainly can do it. And a lot of people want to do it this way to get the full return on investment for their fluorescent tubes. And there's no risk. You just replace the fluorescent as if it was another fluorescent, but instead put the LED in there and you'll be fine. These products are all PMA certified, DO-160 tested. We've done that through test and computation engineering. So, we know the product engineering, the electronics, they're safe. It's always going to be an improvement and you can do it, staged, so to speak.
Thank you, Shervin. Veta, one of the members of the audience is wondering about new and unique ways to control the lighting besides the traditional button controls usually found on the side ledge. Are there any new developments in that area?
Shervin might be better answering that question. Really, besides the switch panels, I would say obviously through apps and iPads and your iPhones. It'd be really cool to eventually get some voice activation like Alexa, but not sure avionics is that far yet.
Yeah, Matt, and if I may chime in,
please.
There's a lot of fun things that we're doing. We recently did a commercial project with Mood Systems where we had 7 different zones and they had 10 different scenes that required different lighting in different zones for meal service, for boarding, for landing, what have you. And we created a custom app for them that just had 10 buttons. So taxiing, you press that button, all the 7 zones do what they need to do. There's pulsing, there's dimming, what have you. You can have anything you want. So typically customers are working with us to creating the sort of scenes that they want on the aircraft, and then we customize the application for them. And then another thing that you'll see a lot with apps are people just want to have the full color wheel. They want to play around. They want to zigzag and find their precise color that they love, preset it. We have a little option that you can have like 4 presets, like your car radio. And with that, you can dim them. If you change your mind, you can reset the preset, find a new color, put it in there. It's really, the world is your oyster when you start doing anything with apps, because it's something that's going to be on your phone. It's kind of great because everybody already has, this mobile computer that they carry with them. So if they can just tap in and start controlling their lights the way they want them, whether it's simplified like that commercial project I spoke about or totally customized, we're at that level where we can do that for you.
That's really interesting, Shervin. So you're basically saying that like you could get the lighting system that comes with a new $75 million Global 7500 in your airplane just by getting the app to do exactly what you want.
Yeah. And what we do is we connect through Bluetooth. So, it's all about planning and integration with the existing CMS. But as far as capability to control the lights through an app, you can absolutely do it. It is, and it's a lot of fun. And, when we get back to trade shows, or if you want to see some of the videos, you can call us, but we'll have demos for you. We're hoping that this webinar life isn't forever, but we appreciate having it now. But yeah, give us a call or look at our website. You can see some of the systems in action, and we're always happy to do demos.
Very cool. Thank you. Vita, here's a good question. Are customers making requests for design for COVID? And if so, what do some of those processes look like? Like, is there a design framework for a COVID-friendly interior, and is it something passengers are asking for or customers?
Most of the standard materials used in the aircraft are already really heavy duty and don't really attach the COVID, different bacteria and stuff like that. There are a lot of sprays and topical treatments that you can look at doing. Some of them are just air-based. Some are actual treatments onto the finished materials. And it kind of just depends on what the client is looking for. Some of the airborne processes take a couple hours and then you're good to go. The actual wipe-on applications are a little hit and miss because after you apply it, it's going to come off eventually as you continue to clean the aircraft. So reapplication is going to be key there. But as far as picking specific leathers or carpets or fabrics, there really hasn't been any questions in regards to what will be beneficial in that regard. It's just additional treatments and applications.
Great. Thank you, Vita. Shervin, here's a technical question asking about the communication protocols for LED lights, whether it's like RS-485, CAN bus, computer source code, or is it is the answer a little simpler than that?
Yeah, so you have a variety of options there. I can speak to our LED systems. They work with, the normal discrete controllers, and they can also be integrated with RS-485 signals. We are open to any sort of programming, but those are the two main ones we have now. And then with our Bluetooth app, what we do is we integrate with discrete controllers, so you can still use the switches on the aircraft, but then when you connect to the Bluetooth, that's when you have all the fun. There's multiple ways to do it, but those are our three main ways of controlling the lights, in particular with the mood and warm to cool system, which, those are where we're going.
Thank you, Shervin. And then another question, is there a weight savings when you switch to LED from fluorescent? I assume if you're able to take the ballasts out, that must make a difference, right?
Yeah, you can, depending on the size of the aircraft and how many ballasts, there's going to be a weight savings. Generally speaking, it's fairly nominal, but it just depends on what the OEM system is that you're replacing. And certainly with larger aircrafts, there's absolutely a significant weight saving. But most of the time, in the way the PMAs work, you can leave the ballast in there, upgrade the lights, because part of the PMA process doesn't say to remove. But if you want to save that weight, you can, for sure.
And I assume that sometimes they're just so buried in the airplane, it's really not worth taking them out.
Right, yeah, exactly.
Okay, and Veta, we have a audience member wondering if there's a backlog right now on interior modifications.
There is a backlog, and a lot of that has to do with availability of materials. COVID has slowed down some shipping processes and stuff like that, but our facility is busy and continues to be busy. But obviously, if there's something that you're looking for, please reach out to us and we can see what we can help you with.
Great, thank you. And then also another person's wondering about whether customers are requesting green and sustainable materials. Is that becoming more of a trend now?
That is becoming more of a trend. It kind of is based on each individual customer's expectations and thoughts in regards to sustainability. So obviously, finding materials that have post-consumer recycled material in there, you got to be a little bit careful because then sometimes those materials don't want to pass burn. So sometimes going the sustainable route is a little bit more challenging in regards to flammability in the interior, but there are definitely ways we can get around it. So if that's something people are interested, just definitely let the designer know and we can look at different solutions for you.
Thank you. And Veta, are people still looking to install flat screen monitors in the cabins, or are we seeing less of that these days?
People are still looking at monitors. Typically, we're eliminating the ones that are on the window panels. Like back in Gulfstreams, they had the slide piece that opens up to monitors and they can pull out. Most of those we are eliminating. Most of the monitors they're trying to make bigger on the bulkheads. And a lot of times you're seeing people want to add larger monitors on top of credenzas. Or attached to the window panels over the credenza. So you're still seeing quite a bit of that, despite the fact that most people are on their individual devices.
Great, thank you, Veta. Shervin, a question specifically about replacement ballasts that are becoming obsolescent and what can be done to alleviate that. I assume that the simple answer is that if there's a LED replacement light available, you can just replace the fluorescent bulb with that, right?
Yeah, absolutely right. You know, you do see a lot of ballasts that aren't being supported, and that's a great opportunity to just upgrade to a self-ballasted LED, which means all the power regulation, all the safety mechanisms that the ballast had provided before are now built into the lamp. And that goes to that point that I had made earlier, where it's just less parts to maintain and you just have everything running through the light. So in the event things do go wrong, you only have one person you need to call us about the lights. We'll figure out what's going on and fix you up. And since you're going self-ballasted, the honest truth is you're probably never going to have to worry about your lights again.
And Shervin, is heat generated by the LED lights a problem, or how does that get mitigated?
So heat relative to what was being produced by the fluorescent tubes and the ballasts is far, far less when you go with an LED. They use about 1/5 to 1/10 of the current draw, depending on which system you're using. So it just requires less power. There's less startup power because you're not trying to ignite gases in a fluorescent tube. So heat overall, it's cool. You know, the lights are operating cool. We don't even operate our LED diodes at their full threshold value. You know, we keep them at about 60-70%, and we use more LED diodes to achieve the light output that we want to see, that's bright and clean. But yeah, it's the heat concerns. They're virtually none. You know, you can handle them, you can touch them. We leave reading light bulbs on all day, and you wouldn't dare touch an incandescent bulb, but you could take out the LED bulb and play around with it, pop it back in, and you're good to go.
Wow, that's really great. So
Yeah, it's fun.
it sounds like there's really no drawbacks to LED lights from the sounds of it.
Yeah, I mean, everybody's going that way. So, you know, I'm sure somebody can think of something, but as far as in our aviation world, that's the way to go. And, you know, you can see it with the way it's being installed, and, you know, those aircraft that are moving a lot and they just need to change out the bulbs with a direct replacement, all the way to the ultra fancy, ultra customized cabins. It's going to be ubiquitous for a long time.
Great. So Vita, we have a question. Are you seeing any significant trends or preferences from younger buyers and owners these days?
I would say the younger owners and buyers are constantly wanting what is in the latest and greatest of what's in automotive industry. So still kind of the blacks, the whites, the grays, very modern looking elements. In regards to that, they're always the techie end of side of things, wanting the latest upgrades in regards to avionics and lighting. They're kind of looking for that whole package there.
And is there any particular interior modification request that is the most popular that you get all the time?
That's a good question. It kind of depends in regards to the aircraft model. We're definitely seeing a lot of modifications to upgrade headliners, PSUs, window panels to get those more modern and sleeker. Definitely with the side ledges and credenzas kind of creating more shapes that have a better free flow, are not so clunky and chunky. I would say those are the main ones.
Exactly. Great. Thank you. And one of the things people wonder is if they can bring their own designer to work with you, Shervin, both for LED lights and Vita for the interior design.
I'll start if Shervin doesn't mind. Absolutely. We work with residential and designers all the time. The thing is that clients just need to be prepared, and their designers need to be prepared that just because you can put something in a house or a hotel or in your car, it doesn't mean that it's going to work for aviation. Aviation has a lot higher standards in regards to flame testing, engineering restrictions, different elements like that. So, for example, like some fabrics that you use in your home may not be able to be used in aviation. You really need to stick with more natural fibers, cottons, wools, and with a little bit of synthetic blends. In regards to carpets, the majority, wool with some silk. Other applications like wallpapers or different elements that can be used, like glass, for instance. Those would be then situations where we could then possibly bring in the hydrographics to be able to create those elements, say on the bulkheads or specific applications, that there's not a material that will pass burn for aviation. And then I'll let Shervin go in regards to talking to the lights.
Yeah, I completely echo everything Vita just said, as far as Just because you see it at home or in your car does not mean that it can happen in aviation. And it's for good reason, right? Because when you're in a plane, you're in the air, you're not going to be able to pull over, you're not going to be able to run out like you would of your house. So it's a closed environment. You're way up in the sky. Everything has been tested. Everything has been meticulously thought of and proven, by third parties to show that, this light's not going to cause any harm. And because of that, that creates, natural barriers of not getting everything that you see, at the mall in a car. So that said, we do work with interior designers. We typically try to work closely with the MRO's interior team. If outside designers come in, we usually let the MRO take the lead, just because it makes more sense. And if there is something fairly unique to the extent that you get a lighting designer, absolutely welcome working with lighting designers and collaborate, because then, we can really push the envelope.
Thank you, Shervin. We've got two questions sort of related to costs. Maybe Vita, you can start. And one of them is asking if there's options for lower cost cabin management systems, because the really integrated systems are so expensive. But also another question about options for larger charter fleet operators if they want to do an interior upgrade to a bunch of aircraft. Are there different options available for that?
So I'll start with the second question first. Obviously, with fleet operators, there's definitely options in getting discounts in regards to purchasing materials in bulk. Typically, a lot of times we're doing a one-off aircraft. So if we can buy a lot of bulk in something, we can typically go to our vendors and negotiate better pricing. So that'll definitely be a cost savings there. Not only that, but once you do one, yes, airplanes have a little bit of nuances, but we can definitely look into time savings as well. In regards to the first question, avionics really isn't my forte in regards to cost effectiveness in the systems. But if you guys would definitely want to reach out to us, I can definitely get you better understanding of what you're looking for in regards to your aircraft, and get you one of our avionics experts to really walk through that with you. So I apologize I can't answer it, but we can definitely get somebody to answer it for you.
Great, thank you, Vita. And Shervin, I assume you'd be happy to work with large fleet operators.
Oh yeah, bring it on, come on down. We can work together and optimize your fleet too. So, we can find ways to make it bulk discount, make it streamlined, eliminate the various lengths of lamps, try to just make everything simplified with the lighting. We're happy to do that and work with any fleet operator on that. And we have. And it's been a really fun and enjoyable experience, because you do the hard work up front and then you just repeat. Everybody wins, everybody's happy. And as far as more affordable controls, there are a number of folks out there. We have relationships with the vast majority of them. It's really, like what Vita said, ask the question. You can call us, you can call Westar. There are options. There's always options, especially these days. So yeah, anybody can help you out there for sure.
Excellent. Vita and Shervin, thank you so much for joining us today for this fascinating discussion. We appreciate everyone's participation, and also Aircraft Lighting International's and Star Aviation's kind sponsorship. So this webinar was recording, and the recording will be shared with all the participants tomorrow. If we didn't get to your question, we'll follow up directly with a response for you. Thank you again, and have a great day.